Welcome back, everyone, as we continue with the MSG 150 at Home, presented by Chase, Bill Pito, and Alan Hahn. And it is our pleasure to say hello to Giants head coach Joe Judge. Coach, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us.
No, thanks for having me today, guys.
All right, so you've been joking that your kids have been upset with you for not getting FaceTime during the NFL draft. The key question, are you out of the family doghouse at this point?
You know what? Somewhat. I don't think they're going to really let me off the leash too much, until they really get some FaceTime.
We know you've been really appreciative, as we all have been, to all of those on the front lines, healthcare workers, responders, everyone trying to help us through. What would you say to all of those people?
The biggest thing is thank you. Thank you. I mean, look, we're all staying home right now, and our biggest headache is being home and having to find a different way to work. Your headaches are you're leaving your family every day, going out there to protect us, to work in hospitals full of people who are infected with this, virus. Out there, if you're police, fire, every time you walk into a building, you stop a car, you have no idea what that person has on the other side. So, the level of risk every day has been raised significantly. So just thank you for going out there and doing what you do every day. We truly appreciate it, and there's a lot of kind of thank yous, but it can never really put the full scope on how important what you do is for us.
That's a great perspective too. And what we do on a daily basis is try to create that distraction from the reality that a lot of people are going through right now and trying to keep all of us safe. And one of those distractions is the NFL from the draft, and then the schedule gets released and fans get excited no matter what when the schedule is released. But how about coaches? When the schedule comes out, especially you, it's your first time as a head coach in the NFL, was there a little bit of excitement, anticipation for you as well?
You know what there is? It's one of those things that it's coming out, and you don't really realize till it comes out how excited you really are. It's something more in front of you. Now you're looking at who you're playing and what sequence. Now you really start changing the mentality of how you're thinking in terms of mapping out the season. You're thinking about your travel schedules, how you can map out practices. You look at long weeks, short weeks, trips cross country. You start doing a lot of gymnastics in terms of organizing everything that goes around it. We were already on Zooms this morning for 3 hours as an organization, just going through hotel choices and flights we want to look at and days to go out to the West Coast. So you get going right away on that. It definitely gets everybody, moving towards an opponent that's in front of you at that point. You've got a team you're working to go against immediately. We knew we were going to play the same teams anyway, but now that you can see the order they're in, it gives you a little bit different perspective on it.
Coach, you're talking about the virtual aspect of our existence these days. What's it like to take your guys during these off-season workouts in a virtual manner? What are the challenges of doing that?
You know what? We're not actually mapping their workouts. So the league gave you the choice. You can track their workouts or you can just meet with them. We've taken the approach as an organization where we've provided the players with resources. They have access to our strength coaches, our nutritionists. Really, it's on them a little bit more to reach out to us. The actual logistics of tracking 90 players through doing virtual workouts, we didn't think that was going to lay out the best for the players or the coach. So we've made ourselves available that they could reach out to us, and they're all following the program and really working hard. Really the biggest challenge in this is we've had some great teaching by the staff. We had some great interaction with the players. They've been communicating, but there's these virtual walls we've all got to work to break down. And look, within building a team, X's and O's are part of it, but really it's building the team that's the biggest part of having it. And we've just got to go ahead and promote, interaction between our players. Look, the reality is this. We've added a lot of players through free agency, and they're sitting in these virtual meetings with their teammates. But to this point here, there's guys on offense and defense that haven't crossed over and seen each other yet. Our goal as an organization is when we're back in the building in late July and August, we're not going to walk down the hallway and have strangers. I don't want a player introduce himself to a coach. I don't want a player, trying to get to know his teammate. I want them coming in and just, glad to see you type conversations. Glad to be able to see this and have this conversation in person. So what you lose in this part of the phase is the lunch table conversations. You lose the camaraderie in the weight room. You lose the walking off the field tired after running with the strength coach and taking your cleats off next to each other, outside the locker room. You lose that. But what we're gaining right now is a lot of information and knowledge on the schemes and systems. I think our players have showed up every day with great urgency. They've had some great retention, really, really good, insightful questions. You can tell we have a smart team that's digging to understand the big picture of what we're putting in. And that's been important to us to really see and reflect. And look, as a new staff, it's our first exposure with the players. So it's important to us, as much as we can, just interact and converse with them. We try to make it as normal as we can. You get a 2-hour window to work with these vets. And those 2 hours, we don't want to make it all football. We have to find some time that's 2 hours to just talk to the guy a little bit. What's going on? How's it going? In a normal meeting flow throughout a day, you may leave a unit meeting and go to a position meeting. There's always that natural transition of, 2 to 3 minutes of talking a little bit. Hey, you wouldn't believe what came up last night, or some story about their kids, whatever it may be. You try to, get that going as naturally as you can in this situation. And I'd say, it's probably the best part of the day is when you click on, you've got, 50 guys in the same room all looking through the computer screen. But before they mute their screens to start the meeting, you can hear them all cutting up across the board. They're all, picking on each other's, quarantine haircuts and facial hair, or what's going on behind them. Everyone's kind of, picking at each other a little bit, which, listen, like you're seeing right now, our doors are open. We're in our homes right now. I'm in the middle of moving right now. I'm packing up a house, so I've got empty shelves. But to hear these guys, knock on each other. Look, we've got guys, and you see the level of commitment that they make to do this. We've got guys who are new fathers that are in the laundry room, because they have to find quiet space from the baby.
How's the Wi-Fi down there, Coach? Is the Wi-Fi good?
No problem so far for me. See, you've got other guys that are outside in a driveway sitting in a car, because it's the best reception they're getting, and they get a quiet space. So you see how everyone has to operate, when you're away from that building, when you're not in the facility together in a meeting room. Everyone has to kind of create their own environment. They've done a great job. Everyone's been very professional the entire way about it. But it definitely gives you a different aspect to everybody on an interpersonal level, because it's, hey, listen, we're having meetings, and all of a sudden a player or coach's kid may just come up, walk behind them and look at the screen. It kind of reminds you, hey, listen, there's more to it than just the X's and O's sometimes, and we've got to look past that.
It's amazing too, we're being socially distant, yet you also have to bring people together. And that's a greater challenge, obviously, when you're trying to build a team. Now, my son's on a hockey team at prep school, and he's got his teammates, and the way they try to stay together is through video games. And it's the one time as a parent where you say, all right, go ahead, because you know how important it is for them to interact with each other. And I've heard you talk about how, as a coach, you're almost encouraging the same thing with your players, because we know this generation of players, they spend a lot of time on the Xbox, but because of networks, because of the ability to talk to each other and compete with each other, that's another form of team bonding. So probably the first time in your life as a coach and maybe a parent, you're like, yeah, go ahead, play video games.
You know what is it? It's interesting talking to some of the vets on the team throughout these last couple of weeks, and really it was earlier this week talking to one of our new additions who has been very eager to meet his new teammates. And one of the things that he brought up that he was doing is he was playing it. They call it the game. Which game is it? But they're all playing Xbox or PlayStation, whatever, together, and it's defensive guys with offensive guys, and it's at least getting communication going. And to me, like I said, it's as much the away from the football that's as important as the actual football itself right now, because it's the off season. This is really when you get to meet each other, develop that team bond. You go through training camp and forge it through fire, but spring's a great time to really get to know your new teammates. To catch up on guys you haven't seen in a few months that have been former teammates as well. But the video games definitely been an avenue our guys are using. Look, I'm not the biggest gamer myself, but I'll tell you, anything to get these guys talking, interacting, forming a bond, I'm all for it.
Coach, speaking of teammates getting to know the guys they're playing with, how about the challenges of you as a coaching staff getting to know your players? Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley obviously going to be very important to you and your staff for your first year as a head coach. How has it been going for you guys getting to know those guys to this point?
I think the good thing about, a lot of our players, and especially those two, Daniel and Saquon, is when we first got into the building, when the facilities are still open, a lot of these guys are still in the building working out. New York's one of those places that the offseason hits, everyone's not scattering to leave town. A lot of guys don't have a problem staying in New York City for obvious reasons in their offseason. So that really makes it easier for us to keep guys there working out, and having access to our facilities. But we had a lot of guys coming through and meeting the coaches as we went through, end of January, February, beginning of March before we closed the facilities. Daniel and Saquon were two of those guys that were always in the building working out. They were very present. We had the opportunity to sit down with them and get to meet them face to face. That's not the case with all of our players. Some of the guys weren't in the building at the time. Some of the guys we didn't have as much exposure to. The biggest thing we're trying to do right now is just present ourselves as who we are. Look, this is me. I'm not a big formal, get overly dressed up guy. This way I'm going to be, wearing in most team meetings anyway. And we just talk to the team as directly as we can through team meetings with me or the coordinators running unit meetings, the position coaches in their individual rooms. And we just want to make sure that we present ourselves as what we really are, and then have that time for some personal connection as well. And through some team bonding exercises we may or may not, incorporate based on what week it is, trying to open up the scale to, just get everybody talking and get to know a little more about themselves.
What would you say is your overall assessment at this point of this draft class?
I'm very pleased with how they've been working. We had our rookie minicamp last week. Was really the first exposure we had as an entire organization to them and them to us in terms of laying out, our expectations of what we think is, an organization, coaches, what we're in demand of them. The first time to really interact with these guys on a large scale of learning, really retaining information and talking back and forth. I've been very pleased on how they're working, staying, current on the material we're talking about. They asked very good, insightful questions. The biggest thing with these rookies is we've been saying this throughout the show, but it's far from just the X's and O's that are important. With these rookies, it's so much of just teaching them about the league, teaching them what it takes to be a professional, how important their bodies really are to them, and how accountable they are to really maintain the shape they're in and to get themselves into shape to compete. But so far, very pleased. A lot more will be told when we get on the grass in training camp, when we go full speed with these guys and, get them around the vets in a competitive environment. But to this point right here, I'm happy where we're moving.
You mentioned free agency early on, and you made some major and key acquisitions, especially on the defensive side with Bradbury and Martinez and several other players, of course, as well. And free agency continues here. There's also another phase of it after the draft. But just right now with the pieces that you have, what do you see from what you were able to do through free agency, and then you add into the draft as well?
Well, the priority we're looking for is just adding good, smart, tough football players. And we believe all the guys we've added to our team fit that criteria right now. I think we definitely got smarter. We got a lot of, Stanford degrees and stuff we added to the team. Definitely trumps my Mississippi State degree a little bit. But, I'll just make sure I'll keep the conversations brief with those guys.
Easy on the vocabulary with those guys, right, Coach?
Well, sometimes you got to remind them, hey, look, we can still run fast. I'm not how fast you think. But, look, I think we got good, smart, tough football players. And that's what we're looking to identify. We didn't try to answer any one question in free agency, or we didn't try to say we're going to address this side of the ball now and the draft later. We were really looking at what fits us as a whole team and what players can add to us, and how we want to be identified as a team. And I think the guys we added really do that. They have good experience in the league. They've got good resumes. You turn their tape on. They play the style of ball we want. The communication is going to be a key element. All the guys that we've added are very good communicators within their room, within their units. That's going to help. But really what we wanted to add more than anything was just competition. I wanted to make sure that, when everyone shows up in training camp, everybody understands that, this is, we're going to be going full speed. This train's moving. So we got to get going fast.
All right, Coach. Hey, we'll leave it there. We can't thank you enough. Best to you, your family, and your organization as you get through these uncharted waters, and we'll see you soon. Thank you again so much for your time.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Stay safe.